Test, test. Test, test, test.
You heard?
Hello. I'd just like to make a statement for all you people that are interested in public comment, that this is considered a TDAC meeting, so tonight you will be...
No. It's a hearing on the redistricting.
I'm sorry. Well, that's what I said.
No, you said TDAC. It's a hearing
Oh,
on the redistricting.
it's a hearing on the redistricting, sorry. And the public comment will be for this evening. And Richard, I know you had something, and this young lady, so that'll be at 6:30 tonight. Thank you.
Invite all the legislators to the chambers so that we can begin today's hearing. Yeah, no. We'll be starting the hearing in a moment, but anyone who would like to speak, please fill out a slip that they have at the clerk's table over here, and then submit the slip, and we'll call you up to speak during the hearing. Okay, I'm going to call this hearing of the county legislature to order. I'll ask Legislator Lafazan to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mike, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Deputy Presiding Officer Howard Copel. Alternate Deputy Presiding Officer Denise Ford. Legislator Sela Bino. Okay, thank you. Legislator Carrier Solage.
Here.
Thank you. Legislator Debbie Muley. Legislator C. William Gaylor III. Legislator John Giuffre.
Here.
Thank you. Legislator Mazi Philippe.
Here.
Legislator Delia DeRigi Witten. Legislator James Kennedy. Okay. Legislator Thomas McKevitt.
Here.
Thank you. Legislator Laura Schaefer.
Here.
Legislator John Ferretti is streaming and listening to the meeting. Good afternoon, John. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Legislator Rosemarie Walker. Legislator Joshua Lafazan. Minority Leader Kavan Abrahams. Presiding Officer Richard Nicolello. We have a quorum, sir.
All right, thank you very much. And now please read the call for a public hearing.
The Nassau County Legislature will hold a public meeting on Monday, February 27th, 2023 at 1 p.m., at which time the legislature will address clerk item number 33-23, a local law to amend Annex A of the County Government Law of Nassau County to describe the 19th legislative districts based upon the 2020 federal census data and any proposed amendments thereto. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to get a motion to open the public hearing with respect to clerk item 33 of 23. Moved by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Legislator Ford. All in favor of opening the hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The hearing is now open. So I have a brief statement that I'm going to read, then I'll turn the floor over to our minority leader, and then we'll open it up to public for public comment. Again, anyone who wishing to speak, please submit a slip at the table over there. Put your name on the list, and we'll call you in the order that you submitted the slip. Today's hearing will be the final hearing of the legislature regarding the 2023 redistricting process. We will vote to adopt a final plan later on at this evening's meeting of the legislature. I'm offering the following to be part of the record. A report from Troutman Pepper dated February 27, 2023, titled Proposed Revised Redistricting Plan for Nassau County Legislative Districts. Second, a supplemental analysis of county legislative districts in Nassau County, New York, from Dr. Megan Gall, dated February 22, 2023. A memorandum of Dr. Daniel Magleby, dated February 24, 2023. I'm also offering for the record correspondence between myself and the minority leader. There was letters from me to the minority leader dated January 4th, 2023 and February 10th, 2023, and a letter from the minority leader to me dated February 14, 2023. Also for the record, just wanted to note that we met with the minority on January 13th and February 14th, 2023 to discuss the process and solicit their input into the creation of new district lines. Our hearing today builds on the record developed at both the Temporary District Advisory Commission and through our legislative process. It is from that record we have advanced the amended map, designed to incorporate many of the proposals that have been voiced throughout the process into a final amended map that we filed on February 21st. Specifically, we have heard from Legislator Arnold Drucker and the residents that Plainview and Old Bethpage are a strong community of interest. The amended map combines these communities into a single district in proposed LD 16. The change was not made for the purpose of helping or harming any incumbent, but based on the community of interest considerations only. Legislator Solage offered testimony in favor of placing Elmont into a single district. The amended map unifies the vast majority of Elmont with a small portion contained in District 8. Legislator Solage also asked that the Millbrook community be returned to District 3. The amendment would restore a portion of Millbrook to District 3. Based on testimony we heard from the public and legislators, the amended map reduces the number of times that the village of Hempstead has been split from 3 to 2. The amended map keeps South Hempstead together as requested by Legislator Muley and residents. unites Westbury and Newcastle as requested by Legislator Bino and residents, unifies Baldwin and Uniondale as was requested by public testimony, and lastly, keeps the 5 towns together, a concern that was voiced at the TDAC hearings. The map before the legislature today complies with all applicable federal and state law, the United States Constitution, the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965, the New York State Constitution, and New York State law in all respects. In this regard, the majority has relied upon the advice of Troutman Pepper, as reflected in the report that's been incorporated into the record. I will now turn the floor over to Minority Leader Abrahams.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Sound like some
Whoops, let me come
kickback. Oh, still sounds like there's a little bit of kickback. Thank you, Presiding Officer. So first, I'm thankful for the folks that are here today. Even though I know snow is imminent and it's coming down, hopefully this process will come to some type of resolution before the snow starts to come in. Though I have respect for my colleagues to the right, I couldn't disagree more. Let's start at the beginning. They have made some changes to the map, but let's be clear. The map that's before us today is still an illegal document. Why is it illegal? Because you're going to hear a lot about that back and forth today. Well, number one, it violates the Federal Voting Rights Act. How does it do so? Because it dilutes minority votes across the board. Lakeview, Freeport, across the board. The minority vote cannot be diluted. I was looking forward to questioning Mr. Salins, who was here at the last hearing again, because I still have a problem with his approach by his own testimony that he does not look at race when the map was drawn. However, race is a major component when you're looking at the Federal Voting Rights Act to determine not diluting minority votes. He can't reconcile that. That being said, the map is illegal. But let's move forward. As I said before, the towns of Lakeview, the towns of Freeport, where I live, predominantly majority communities, their votes are being diluted. 100%, you cannot spin it any other way. There's going to be folks here from Lakeview that are going to speak to that, but just speaking on behalf of the residents of Freeport, which is a lovely community, made up of all different races and backgrounds. However, the areas of Northwest and Northeast Freeport are predominantly majority. And now those districts and those areas are now being put into predominantly broader communities that will dilute their vote. So from that standpoint, I don't see how their votes and how their power in this particular process is not being diluted. Second, the John Lewis provision indicates that when possible, which we have demonstrated before and seen again, it is possible, that you have 5 majority districts. This map, as by testimony by the Republican majority, only has 4. For some reason, they have chosen not to include a 5th minority majority. I'm guessing it's based off the testimony of Mr. Salins that indicates that he did not look at race. However, the John Lewis provision is exactly doing that. It's asking you to look at race to make sure it's applied appropriately. So it doesn't make much sense in terms of how that reconciliation actually occurs. We asked multiple times over and over again for Mr. Trendy, who put together the analysis as per Harkin Ryder Hochul, put together the analysis to come here and explain that analysis so that we can actually see exactly what he tried to do. Dr. Magleby, who put together the analysis for the TDAC Democratic members, did that. He explained that his analysis is very similar to the analysis that was used in Harkin Ryder versus Hochul. The one difference, though, that no one will really own up to is the measurement. In the Trendy analysis, he uses the measurement of gubernatorial years. Okay. But there's no one up here of the 19 of us that gets elected in gubernatorial years. So when you use that measurement and you show a graph and a bar and you say that, hey, we fall within the lines of being a nonpartisan or lessly partisan gerrymandered map, you're using a different measurement. The measurement that Dr. Magleby used was a measurement using local elections, county executive, county clerk, district attorney, all elections where this body actually gets elected in. So ultimately, it's not a question of who's right and who's wrong. It's what's more effective and what's the most appropriate approach. So from that standpoint, we stand to believe that because we don't get elected in gubernatorial years, unless it's a special election or something of that magnitude, it makes more sense to apply the approach that Dr. Magleby has talked about. Look, I want to get to the folks that are here today. I know there's many people here from the Lakeview community, Hempstead community, Freeport community. Obviously, those are all communities that are being impacted by their votes being diluted. But most importantly, the one thing I could stress today to my Republican colleagues is this. We have an opportunity. If the disagreement is between Mr. Trendy and Dr. Magleby's approach, we have an opportunity today, they have an opportunity today, to instruct their consultant to run the measurement based off of what Dr. Magleby did. If they don't do that, let me explain what happens. If they don't do that, they are putting their heads in the sand and therefore saying that they do not want to see what those numbers look like. Why? Why don't you want to see what Dr. Magleby already generated? I'll tell you why. The reason is very clear. Is because it's going to show exactly what Dr. Magleby is saying. If you change the measurement to county executive, DA, county clerk years, it's going to show exactly what he's saying. But instead, I read through Mr. Salen's report, or I'm not too sure who drafted this, from Trotman Pepper, and that indicates that they're more trying to impugn his work. They're trying to discredit his work. When it's clear, it's just the measurement. That's the big difference of when we measure that particular election. But if they choose not to run that report the way Dr. Magleby has done, we are going down a path that's going to ensure there will be litigation ensuing this county. Because that particular measurement, that particular analysis that needs to be done could very well be asked to be done right now. We can take the time. I'm sure by a push of a button on a computer, Mr. Trendy can generate that analysis. But we are choosing not to have him generate that analysis. And the bigger question is, why? They won't give you an answer why. They're going to say that they stand by Mr. Salen's testimony that racial makeup should not be incorporated into redrawing a map. I look out into the audience today, I think the folks here beg to differ. That being said, we are seeing that the communities of Freeport, the community of Lakeview, their votes are dramatically being diluted in this process. And the only thing that's stopping any level of litigation is politics. That's it. Nothing else. From our standpoint, the Republican majority is now being forewarned that if this analysis is not to take place, very clearly there's going to be third-party lawsuits out there, and the county will be sued on various different things that I just mentioned just now. Minority majority districts, dilution of votes, it's clear as day. We're going down a path where we're going to be asking you, the taxpayers, to fray the bill. Keep in mind, law firms that sue the county, their costs and expenditures are reimbursed by Nassau County. The costs are not taken on by them and then they forever stay with them. Their costs are reimbursed by Nassau County. So if Nassau County generates a bill to basically defend this case, they not only have to pay the council that's here to represent this legislative body and the county executive, whoever else is named in the lawsuit, they are also responsible for paying the fees of the petitioner and the and the plaintiffs. Millions of dollars just because of politics. So from that standpoint, we are being forewarned today that we have an opportunity to do everything we can. Look at the Trendy analysis, ask for it to be done a different way, as per Dr. Magleby, just to cover ourselves as an institution. But they're choosing not to. The bigger question is why. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Okay, thank you. Start with public comment. Jonathan Proust. Prevost. Sorry, I didn't, handwriting was a little bit difficult to decipher.
Good afternoon, elected officials, residents of Nassau County. My name is Jonathan Prevost, and I'm here today to discuss the issue that Minority Leader Abrahams has just brought up regarding the redistricting. Before I address my points, I'd like to point out some of the demographic changes that have occurred here in Nassau County since our last census was taken in 2010. The African American community has seen an increase of 11%, and between 2010 and 2020, there has been a 10% increase. The Native American and Alaskan Native community has seen a 96% from 2010. The Asian American community has seen a 59% increase from 2010. Native American and other Pacific Islanders, 7.3% increase, and those who self-identify as other race, 153.5% increase from 2010. What are these numbers telling us? Nassau County is changing. The demographic in which we are being represented is consistently and being changed to reflect a changing demographic. These maps that have been proposed do not reflect that. I'm a resident of LD1. The LD1 map that has been presented looks nothing similar to what the standard should be for a fair and just minority-majority map that should be representative of the people. Similar situations for LD2 and LD3. 3 strong legislative districts with strong minority communities. According to the ACLU, the Supreme Court deems vote dilution as certain electoral laws, practices, or structures interacts with social and historical conditions that cause an inequality and opportunities enjoyed by black and white voters to elect their preferred representatives. Furthermore, as Minority Leader Abraham stated, the John R. Lewis Voting Right Act of New York, now I know some of you are attorneys, so page 4, section 2, lines 10 through 12 for your references, states, it prohibits against vote dilation. No board of elections, political subdivisions shall use any methods of election having the 12 effects of impairing the ability of members of a protected class to elect candidates of their choice or influence in the outcomes of an election. Violation of paragraph A in this subdivision shall be established upon showing that a particular subdivision used at-large methods in election in either voting patterns of members of a protected class within the political subdivision are racially polarized. Under the totality of the circumstances, the ability of the members of the protected class to elect candidates of their choice or influence outcomes. What are we doing here? We are setting precedent for the next 10 years of Nassau County. We are addressing what will come next. If we allow this map to proceed, what message are we sending to our changing neighborhoods? What message are we sending to the future residents of Nassau County when you come here? Their votes matter. These people behind me have come in today to share their opinions about the situation at hand because they felt it was important to them, and not only them, the next generation of Nassau County residents. So I implore you to please reconsider this map and consider the points that I've made here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Provost. Judy Cataldo.
Can I speak later?
This is your opportunity, Ms. Cataldo.
Now?
Yes.
Hi, Judy Cataldo Belmore. I agree with. I'm sure. Okay. Hi, I'm just here to question why won't you look at the constituents, what we're asking for, and redo the maps according to what the Democratic representative was speaking about. Like, I don't understand why you just won't go through the system and just explain to us, maybe perhaps there's a different perspective to look how you're districting. Do you get to answer, or is it like a non-option?
You have three minutes.
No, that's okay. I just want an answer. I'll use my time for you.
As I indicated before, the number of changes that were made with the input of the minority and with residents that we had made to the current map. So we have made a large number of changes to our map, the one that's being proposed today, based on community input, based on the comments of legislators.
Okay, so if I'm interpreting what you're saying, which I'm thankful that you're, responding, is that you made certain provisions, but you're not making total provisions and taking total consideration of what the impact of the area is?
We've taken consideration of everything that's been said and every proposal and every suggestion, but we were unable to accomplish every one of those suggestions.
Well, okay. I thank you for your time, and I totally don't agree, and I think everybody else won't agree with that too, correct? Can we hear a loud yes? Yes. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Cataldo, thank you. Eileen Smiley. Ellen Smiley.
Good afternoon. Better? Okay. I'm here to protest the map that was adopted by the Town of Hempstead Board and the changes that have come since that meeting. It breaks apart communities and significantly dilutes minority votes. Minorities now make up 47% of the population of Nassau, yet that significant percentage of the population, nearly half, has only one representative district in Nassau, that being Hempstead, which has now been broken into 2 districts. This is, in essence, voter disenfranchisement at its worst, and it's a terrible black stain on the reputation of Nassau County that must be rectified to ensure proper representation for a large segment of our population. We must ensure that there are 5 minority-majority districts to guarantee full representation of nearly half of our population. This map that has been approved by the Town of Hempstead Board doesn't do that, and it's disgraceful. We must do better for our residents. Thank you.
Okay. Scotty Codes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a request. I want to turn this microphone around, if that's okay. I want to speak to the audience.
This is your opportunity to speak to us, not the audience, so please
Okay.
direct the comments this way.
Well, I thought I would ask first. Before I begin, let me just thank Legislator Kavan Abrahams, our minority leader, Seal Albino, our legislator, Carrie Salages, our legislator, and all who are on the progressive side. Thank you very much for your efforts in fighting for us. Kavan, I don't have Legislator Abrahams, forgive me if I say Kavan, because I know you for so long. I thank you for being very explicit in your explanation about how they misused and abused their decision to crack and pack our communities. I'm so upset about what's going on in Lakeview that I don't know how to describe the feelings that I have. But I'm going to try to be as diplomatic as possible. This is my 9th time coming before this body, asking you to be fair and equitable in your decision in drawing maps. The person who stood in front of us last week or the week before, whatever day he fumbled through things, it's a disgrace that we had to hear all of how he came to a conclusion of moving Lakeview, cracking Lakeview, cracking District 2. How did he come to that conclusion? It's beyond me. I'm not going to cry here because I'm a big lady. I've cried at home. My district that's been in play has been in existence for 43 years. It took 2023 for this body on the conservative side to decide that we should not have a voice anymore. On August 23rd, on August 31st, your very first redistricting hearing, I, along with many other Nassau County residents, stood before you and passionately requested that you keep our districts together. We, Lakeview residents and other organizations and Nassau residents were here from the beginning with the same request. And here we are at the end of the hearings making the same request, pleading with you to keep us together. This time, the majority legislators have put Lakeview in the worst electoral position since 1980, 43 years ago. What is this redistricting? The reason I asked if I could talk to the audience, many people know what redistricting is about, but many don't. I'll say it anyway so they can hear me. I'll speak loud. Redistricting is the process by which states and the jurisdictions within them to redraw the lines that encompasses electoral districts. These districts are geographical areas from which political representatives, many of you sitting there, and you might understand what I'm saying, are elected on local, regional, state, and federal levels. The residents of each electoral district vote for who will govern them and represent them. In the U.S. House of Representatives, state legislature, county commissions, city councils, school boards, and more. According to the U.S. Constitution, all electoral districts within a given redistricting map must contain approximately the same number of people. That's the starting of redistricting. When it comes to redistricting the map drawing, there are three things residents must be aware of the map drawing process. One, cracking. Fragments of minority population disperses them among other districts to ensure that all districts are white. Perfect example is Lakeview. Lakeview was cracked by being put in 4 conservative districts where we have no common interest whatsoever. None. Yes, we have a school district with Malvern, Lynbrook, Lakeview, but school districts has nothing to do with fair drawing of lines. Stacking is number 2. Stacking combines large minority population with great number of white voters in order to ensure districts are majority white. Packing. Packing concentrates as many minorities as possible to minimize number of districts where the majority are members of a majority. But you all who did the maps know this already. You really don't care. We, the voters, are supposed to choose candidates, but when lawmakers draw districts line to entrench one party, one political power, some votes count more than others. We want to have individuals elected already in place with the fight to protect our community. I'm first to tell you, it's not about the individuals who sit there facing me. We happen to luck out in our district. In District 2, we got a fantastic elected official. In District 1 and in District 3. Let me say, however, maps should be drawn with community cohesion and mind and not division. You've divided us, and that's not what you're supposed to do. Lines should not be drawn that divides communities of interest. which creates difficulty to find representatives to champion their cause and advocate for them. Yes, I'm supposed to speak to you, but I hope everybody's listening. Lakeview brings to the 4 districts about 6,000+ votes. One of the 4 districts got 20,000. How are we supposed to ever elect anybody with common interests if you keep this map with Lakeview being where you have put us? My request tonight is, however, that the map should be redrawn for Lakeview, Freeport, Hempstead. Legislator Kavan, I say again, I take my hat off to you. I don't have to speak any of the numbers because you spoke them already. And you stepped right up to the plate. We realize also that our minority communities are generally the ones that must always fight for services that many times are automatically given with ease to other communities, such as repairing roads and many entitlements of federal, state, and local services. Let me go to gerrymandering that you have done to Lakeview. We all are familiar with gerrymandering. Back in 2013, I made a passionate plea on behalf of the NAACP to our brothers and sisters across the state of New York to join with us and to support us as we continue to fight against gerrymandered district maps that were designed by Nassau County Majority Party for the Nassau County residents. The majority map would have moved more than 300 residents to accommodate the gerrymandering effort and control and power electronically. Electorally, sorry. You have taken a community that has been in place for 43 years, I repeat. Yes, 43 years. And is turning it upside down, all in the name of power. You're that hungry for power that you would destroy my entire community, that we have no voting power. None. None. We are conscientious voters in Lakeview that have managed to choose our representatives well, and we did. Now you're taking the opportunity to select our representatives that will not fight for our issues. I did an analysis. There are 4 great election districts in Lakeview. There's 6 altogether, but the 4 I'm referring to, I can tell you the numbers because I did the analysis. Blank voters, 39.5%. Conservative voters, 85.7%, 71%. Democrats, the true active voters, 2,502. 2307 that voted in 2022. We had a total vote. The representatives, the Republicans, had 304 votes. Tell me why you put us with 4 conservative districts. Because you need our votes, but you're not giving us a fair chance at the representatives we want. Yeah, I'm upset. I came to Long Island in '78, worked my butt off to grow the district. We all did. I don't like to use I or me. We all worked hard to make our community strong. then you take it away from us and throw it away where we don't have any votes at all. I learned from whence I came, from the Deep South. Got on a train, and years ago when I was a kid, scared to death of being accused of anything, we could not stop anywhere to eat. Everybody who traveled from the South traveled with fried chicken in a shoebox. Yes. We worked our way through boroughs, and I'll fast forward to 78 coming to Long Island, up south. Did I know I would end up south? This is definitely what we're dealing with. North Carolina can do better with redistricting than we're doing in Nassau County. It's a doggone shame. We're sick. We're tired. We're tired of fighting for everything that we ever gain. And then you come along in 2023 and you take it away just like that, with the flick of the pen. I asked you before, can you do something about putting Lakeview back in District 2? It can be done. Lakeview could have been the 5th majority district, but instead you took it away. I guess I'm not going to have the opportunity to speak to you again, but I hope and pray that I don't have to worry about the mere fact that this girl that came from Charleston, South Carolina, came to Nassau County to be mistreated by some colleagues that I was at the town board together with. And I remember inviting you in 2013 to come to Kennedy Park as I went from one community to the next to explain to my community what redistricting was all about. And then you said to me, Majority Leader, see, Scotty, I promised you I would come, and I came. This is the same Scotty that invited you to come, and I know the party persuasion was different. But what we do is the right thing for our community and for our people. Please, do what you can to make me gain some kind of confidence back in Nassau County. Oh, yes, my folks over here have done their thing. I appreciate Kavan, Sela, Carrier, and all of the others. I'm just only talking about the minority district right now that you have torn apart. You've torn Kavan Abraham's district apart. You put some of it back together for Sela and some of it back for Carrier. But you left us stranded with not even one iota of a vote for anybody that can support us and represent us. I thank you for listening, and I thank you for the extra time.
Thank you, Scotty. Mita Meraday.
in honor of Black History Month. I find it important at this point, as I did at one of the hearings, to share. This is the closing verse, the last stanza of the Negro National Anthem. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who has brought us thus far on our way, thou who has by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in thy path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. We stand here today on the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors, the often free labor that built structures that others felt it was their entitlement to desecrate, and I'm talking about the U.S. Capitol. I stand today on a structure that my ancestors directly laid the concrete, the foundation for. And I stand here today in 2023, 102 years since burning of Black business communities, the desecration of a people who gave their very lives, including 1 million who served in World War II for what they felt was a double victory, not just victory in Europe and Japan, but victory in America. It wasn't until 1948, after World War II was over, that blacks, that the desegregation of the armed forces. So needless to say, my ancestors have more than a notion in terms of how they have been disrespected and disenfranchised. But I stand here today to speak for them and for the other voices of the men and women of my community. I recently saw a documentary that said from swastikas to Jim Crow. That spoke to the relationships between the Black and Jewish communities, particularly during World War II. And the United Front, when you had white conservatives that were discriminating against Blacks and Jews. The coalitions that were formed, the Freedom Riders who couldn't travel. As Scotty Coates said, they had to bring their chicken and their bread in a shoebox. They could not use public facilities. And I stand here today in the midst of a disenfranchised process, in the midst of a country where you have state leaders that are trying to say racism doesn't exist, diversity is not necessary, and we are all in a post-racial society. The lies, the lies, the lies. I recognize Legislator Drucker's impassioned speech, considering the line was drawn straight down his block, and he had to cross the street to get in his own district, and the residents of the now reunited Plainview and Old Bethpage. I recognize that. What I don't recognize is the number of residents who stood before you or stood before a commission that at one point the Republican delegation left the room. The stenographer refused to record, and taxpayers braved the rain to speak their issues. But Malvern's voices, Lakeview's voices, were not heard. It's not addressed in this well-impassioned, one-sided commentary. Where is that? Where is the justice for that? There's recognition of a district that was formed or kept whole because of the views of the Orthodox Jewish community. I recognize that. They wanted to be kept whole. They wanted to have their common interests recognized and supported. I'm fine with that. There was a question that was asked of this body that was not answered, because a number of representatives on this side spoke to the possibility of them not being seated there come the next election with this map. Not one person on this side spoke up and said, yes, my position is compromised. That is telling to me. The two primary villages, incorporated villages of Hempstead is still split. The accommodation is here as well. It was 3. Now we made it 2. They wanted 1. There were 4 residents that spoke about Plainview and Old Bethpage, and I'm going to wrap it up.
Thank you.
4. There are anywhere from 30, 40 to 50 residents from Mount Vernon Lakeview. Where was their voice heard? Because it will not be heard in the election polls. It will not be heard in the distribution of state and federal funding. Why is that? Who is going to speak for us? There are counties in upstate New York that have maybe less than 500,000 residents, and they have upwards of 40 districts. If the census requires that we are entitled to up to 5 majority-minority districts, then we need more than 19. We need to have our voices heard. We need to have our votes count. It's interesting that the county executive can show up in Garden City for a no casino meeting, but refuse to show up in Uniondale, despite many requests to come. That is telling to me. My last statement. We know that these maps, as was poignantly stated by the minority leader, are illegal on its face. We know the town of Hempstead's maps are illegal. I commend you, presiding officer, for at least making some changes, because the supervisor gave us no courtesy and no respect. These maps, the work is not done. We will wait, because it's in violation. They do reinforce racial stereotypes. They do undermine a representative democracy, and we still must overcome. Thank you.
Dave Mejias. Just let the record reflect that Legislator Kennedy is in the room.
Coming just for me? You coming just for me? Thank you. Appreciate that. I need glasses now. I've gotten a little older. Thank you, presiding officer, for having me and letting me speak. This has been a very vigorous process. The Democrats and the Temporary Districting Advisory Commission have done everything we possibly could to be as transparent as possible with everything that TDAC has done. Our delegation provided comprehensive reports from 2 nonpartisan experts, including 4 from demographer and racially polarized voting expert Megan Gall. She testified at the TDAC committee meeting. We provided 5 reports from our political science expert, Dr. Daniel Magleby, who we made available to testify twice and openly responded to any questions put forth. All reports were put on the record and made publicly available well in advance of any hearing. This is starkly different than the accessibility that the public and the legislature themselves had to the reports submitted by Mr. Trendy. I believe there was one submitted today just before this hearing started from your attorney. We tried to do everything we can to make sure the public knew what was going on here, because that's the most important thing in government, is to be open and transparent. The Democratic delegation at TDAC used a separate Google Drive that included all information, data, maps, reports, proposed resolutions, etc. As the majority of the information generated during the TDAC Commission hearings was not made available on the Nassau County website. We had hundreds of members of the community come down to speak about the importance of the maps and their representation in this body for the next 10 years. The majority in the legislature has refused to produce their voting rights analysis, including the RPV analysis of Mr. Trendy. Dr. Daniel Magleby submitted a rebuttal analysis to the Trendy report, and we did so well in advance. proving that Mr. Trendy used the incorrect elections to analyze partisan gerrymander, and therefore his conclusions are wrong. He uses what's called a gerrymandering index. It's referred to in this Troutman-Pepper report as being the measure used by the Court of Appeals in Harkenrider. There's no reference to gerrymandering index in the Harkenrider report. In fact, the court endorses the very ensemble analysis that Dr. Magleby used. Dr. Magleby analyzed all proposals and concluded that this map is an extreme partisan gerrymander and used the same exact analysis that was used in the Harkenrider case. Mr. Trendy drew his analysis without regard to race, according to this report, which is a clear violation of the Voting Rights Act and the New York State Voting Rights Act. Therefore, the entire analysis used for this map is invalid. The court in Harkenrider clearly endorsed the ensemble analysis used by Dr. Magleby. We don't know which elections were used to calculate this gerrymandering index. I will be as quick as possible, presiding officer. On page 14 of this analysis of the report today, we have this graph with 0.1, 0.13, 0.17. No one says specifically exactly what that means. What does that mean? What do these measures mean on this map? Dr. Megan Gall confirmed the presence of racially polarized voting, or RPV, in Nassau, and compliance with Section 2 of the Federal Voting Rights Act and the New York Voting Rights Act demands the creation of 5 majority-minority legislative districts. And failing to create 5 such districts, the majority's map does not comply with Section 2 and the New York Voting Rights Act's prohibitions on racial vote dilution. The cases that are cited in the Troutman-Pepper report fail to tell you that it is a compelling government interest to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, which would require 5 majority-minority districts. That is a compelling government interest. Troutman's own report says, absent the compelling government interest, that's already been ruled to be a compelling government interest. This map will not hold up in court. Additionally, Dr. Gall concluded that it is possible to create an Asian influence district with an Asian voting age population above 40%. And she notes in her report that the current map is an egregious retrogression resulting in dilution of the Asian vote. And just yesterday, there was a lawsuit filed by the Asian American Defense Fund in New York City because that map did the exact same thing that this map does.
Dave, could you sum up?
Summing it up.
We've actually made those reports part of the record, the full reports.
Legislative, while we are on notice that there should be 5 majority-minority districts and an Asian influence districts, and the fact that this map fails to comply with the Voting Rights Act in regards to majority-minority districts and an Asian influence district, where in North Hempstead we see an Asian American community split into 3 different ways, and a legal map such as this will not hold up in court, would result in wasting millions of taxpayer dollars on lawsuits that the county is all but certain to lose. And we saw this exact thing happen in Islip, where they spent millions of dollars on defending a lawsuit and paying the prevailing party, and in the town of East Ramapo as well. So I thank you for the extra time, presiding officer. I think this process is not over yet. Anybody could file a lawsuit on this current map, and unfortunately, it's a very simple solution. This is something that's very easy to do, but at the end of the day, the Federal Voting Rights Act prevails, and it's there for a reason. And this map fails, and there's a compelling government interest for this body to correct the errors in the current map. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay.
President Officer, before you call the next speaker, I think Chairman Mejia has brought up a point that I failed to neglect, and it's a very pointed question to the majority, which I think deserves a response to the public at least, in terms of the metric that Mr. Trendy used. I just want to make sure we establish for the record the metric that he used when he developed his analysis.
We have submitted for the record a complete report from Troutman-Pepper, which explains in detail exactly what was done. So beyond that, we're not going to comment.
So I understand that the report has been submitted, and I get that. And from what I understand from Mr. Salence, he indicated that yourself and him put together the map. So I think it'd be very clear to understand that when you were with him, Mr. Salence, putting together the map, that it was with the direction of Mr. Trendy's report, So Mr. Trendy report, if I can understand it correctly, the metric that's being utilized is very important to be established in the record, which I would think yourself and Mr. Salins would have knowledge of, because you developed the map, at least according to Mr. Salins. He indicated that you guys put together the map together. So that being said, I would like to demonstrate, just for the record and for the public, that we indicate the metric that was used in Mr. Trendy's report. I understand that the report's part of the record, but a lot of folks here, they don't have access to the Trendy report. Does anyone here have access to the Trendy report or analysis?
Regardless, the report speaks for itself. We're not going to go into any further detail with respect to that. So I'm going to continue to call residents to come speak. David Thomas.
Where's the report? What is it?
So as Mr. Thomas comes to the podium, you see, this is the problem with the process. It's done with secrecy. It's done in dark. When you try to bring things to light, then you don't get it. My colleagues, unfortunately, this process, and I'm sorry to take away from your time, this process, unfortunately, voters should always have the opportunity to choose their candidates and also to choose who elects them. Unfortunately, my colleagues to the right are setting up a process where elected officials start to choose candidates. Start to choose voters. And that's the wrong direction to go in. But thank you. I apologize for taking away your time.
Before your time starts, Mr. Thomas, I would point out that the City University of New York looked at the proposed map and found that 15 of the 19 districts had Democrat enrollment majorities. So I'm not sure what it is the minority wants, but perhaps they're unhappy that you have a map that's going to create fair fight districts throughout this county, and what they really want is a gerrymandered map. So that's the only thing I can conclude. If you have 15 districts out of 19 that have an enrollment edge for Democrats, and they're not happy with that, then it speaks to the motivations of my colleagues on the left.
Unfortunately, I don't want to get into a back and forth, but just to disagree more vehemently with the presiding officer, by the own analysis of their expert, Mr. Trendy, he basically conducted an analysis that bases how the districts perform in terms of a partisan gerrymander based on performance, not based on enrollment, not based on enrollment. We know that. He knows that. That's in their expert's report. That, to me, that's why this thing is being done in a fashion where it's secrecy, there's no transparency, it's being done in darkness. You ask for a report, they're telling you it's part of the backup, when you can just very easily print it out and give it to people right there. I asked a very pointed question about the metric. We get a stalwart answer. So the fact remains, this is not based on enrollment. They know that, and their own expert indicated that. This is based off of performance in terms of how people actually vote. There's a lot of people in this room. You might be Republican and Democrat. You don't always vote for the Republican and Democrat. You may not like the guy. More respect to you. So from that standpoint, you vote the way you want to vote. You vote independent. You vote for whoever you may be a blank, somebody that's not registered to any particular party, and you may vote the way you want to vote. And that's why it's based on performance, and they know that. But they're going to try to cloud things. They're going to bring up City of New York. They're going to bring up all these entities to try to validate what they put forward. Unfortunately, the biggest validation is you had an opportunity to ask Mr. Trendy to be here today. He's not here. You had an opportunity to ask Mr. Trendy to do an analysis. So if you want to try to discredit Mr. Magleby or Dr. Magleby, you could do it in one stroke of a computer stroke, one stroke of a computer key. That's all you had to do.
And we did. We did, actually.
No,
if you read the Troutman-Pepper report, they ran his numbers and indicated that his numbers are as skewed as can be.
Rich, I've known you for 20 years. Can we at least have an honest discussion?
Yeah, we
can. They ran his numbers.
But you're not being honest.
No, Rich.
You're not being honest, because we know where you're going, because
I'm not going anywhere.
When we started this process back at the time of the first hearing, one of the first comments was made by one of the Democratic commissioners, this is going to a lawsuit. So you're trying to establish a record
I've never said that.
That'll support your claim that all the information wasn't provided. This has been an incredibly transparent process. We have taken into consideration comments made by our colleagues on the left. We have made changes, but none of it will ever satisfy the minority, because they want this to go to court. They want to get a void around the public process, the democratic process.
I've never once said, and the public, you heard my opening statement, I've never once said I wanted this to go to court. What I did say was that because of your reckless actions and because of what you're demonstrating to in this process, it will end up inevitably.
Your comments are reckless. You're going to call this process reckless? Your comments are reckless. So
what I'm saying,
I think we have the same opinion.
What I'm saying, okay, that's fine. What I'm saying, Presiding Officer, is that basically you have the opportunity to ask Mr. Trendy to do the measure.
It's all been laid out for you.
No, he did not.
It's all been laid out for you, number one. Number two, none of us up here are experts. None of us up here are experts in analysis. None of us are experts up here in demographics. So all we can do is look at all of the facts that we can understand and put that forward to you. All the information that you could possibly need on these calendars, on these maps, has been provided to you.
Folks, they're going to keep trying to defend what they did. They're going to keep trying to defend what they did. The bottom line is, you see it for yourselves. You see the lack of transparency and the secrecy that this is being done in. That's a fact. What he's not telling you, and it's in the report, and we can cite the actual page, is that Mr. Trendy's analysis uses a different measurement. The measurement that he uses is gubernatorial years. He's not going to say that because that hurts their analysis. I don't understand why he won't say it, because it's actually in this Trotman-Pepper report. If you stand by the report, you should be able to say it on the record. Instead, you're saying the report's part of the record, and the folks can look at the record and see part of what they want to do.
Mr. Magleby was here talking about
Rich, I never cut you off. I've never cut you off, Presiding Officer.
He was here talking about doing a different
you don't like what I'm saying, so you're going to cut me off.
We pointed out the fallacy in his analysis, and he had no response.
Presiding Officer, I never cut you off. I let you speak, even though I disagree with everything you said. I've never cut you off today. Never did.
Look, you're going on a monologue, so I'm going to interject my comments.
So basically, it's okay. So now it's okay to interrupt.
You don't have an unfettered ability. Look, this is the middle.
So now it's okay to interrupt.
Wait. This is the middle of public comment. I was listening to the comments of the people, which is what we want to hear for. You interjected yourself. Now you're upset because I counted some of your points.
No, I'm not upset because it counted my point. I'm upset because there should be some level of civility. I mean,
you just called us reckless. Is that civil? Tell me how civil that is.
Your actions are reckless.
Okay,
yes, they are.
Go. That's very civil of you.
Yeah.
Come on.
Thank you. But how else would you demonstrate the fact that you have an opportunity as a majority
extended.
So we're going to keep cutting off. Folks, this is their thing.
Unlike every Democratic. Wait.
Yeah, stop cutting me off.
Unlike every Democratic
we're going to keep cutting off.
throughout the state, we reached out to the minority over and over and over and over again. They would never, ever have done that for us. But we did it for them. We wanted their input. We took their input. We changed the maps. And now they're calling us reckless. Thank you. First of all, they keep saying that they took the minority input. And yes, they took some suggestions that were presented by some of the members on the minority side. But you heard, and I think Mrs. Meriday said it best, you heard from 40, 50 some odd people from Lakeview. I think Lakeview probably came down here more than any other community in Nassau. And you didn't incorporate one single of their changes. I've advocated for Freeport, an area that vote is being diluted. I don't see any changes incorporated to Freeport. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that it's a map and it's hard. It's like looking at a bowl of Jell-O. You push one thing and then you go into the next, and it's very hard to make everyone happy. We get that. And I've never once said that we are encouraging a lawsuit. What I'm saying is that this institution should take every measure possible to ensure one doesn't happen. And we have experts on both sides, well, mainly I would say the TDAC Democratic side, that are telling that this map is illegal. And we can change that dynamic very easily, because the one difference that Dr. Magleby testified to is the measurement. Why wouldn't you instruct your expert to change his partisan gerrymander analysis based off of that one metric? That's the part that's so simple. He's basing it, the metric, the measure they're using, is gubernatorial years. Would it make sense to put together an analysis for a body that doesn't get elected in a gubernatorial year? Ask yourselves that question. It doesn't make any sense. It would be like saying,
I want to determine traffic patterns on work days, but I go out on a Saturday and Sunday and do it. That's what they're saying. So basically, they're not making much sense. But they don't want to talk about that. They want to confuse things. They want to cut me off. They want to do all these kinds of things. But you know what? Bottom line is, we have a very pointed opportunity to avoid litigation. I don't want to see it because I know who pays for it, and I care who pays for it. Unfortunately, some folks don't. And ultimately, we had that opportunity. Present the analysis. If Mr. Trendy's analysis shows that it's not a partisan gerrymander, I'll back down. I'll vote for your map. You have my word. I would vote for your map if it showed that. But they won't ask Mr. Trendy to do that. Well, I wouldn't vote for that map, Saudi, because Lakeview's not all whole in the minority majority. So just to be clear. But that being said, that they won't ask Mr. Trendy to do that.
They did. He did.
No, he did not.
It's in his report.
It's not based off of.
Number one.
It's not based off. We're going to cut off again. It's not based off a measurement.
Well, look,
it's not,
this is a public hearing.
Here we go again.
How much time would you like, Minority Leader? This way we can judge as to when your comments will be finished.
My comments will be finished when they're finished.
I've got 20 slips I want to hear from the public. I don't want to hear from a monologue.
So now you care about hearing from the public, but when Lakeview was here and they poured their hearts out, 40 or 50 folks, you didn't really care what they said. But now you want to hear them. Now, folks, they want to hear you. See, I talk to my kids like this all the same way. They want to hear you, but are they listening to you? Yes. That's the difference. So they want to hear you, but are they going to listen to you? Are they going to come back later on tonight and just vote through and ram through this map, this illegal map? Or are they going to basically make changes in the next couple of hours? I think it's going to be more the former. They're going to actually make sure that they just ram it through. And unfortunately, that is going to lead to a lawsuit. I don't want a lawsuit. I'm being very clear for the record. I do not want a lawsuit. But if we proceed down a path that it's illegal, you're bringing one on. Just know that your actions are doing that. Thank you.
The Minority Leader was presented with Mr. Trendy's analysis. In fact, the draft was one of the backups to the report that he submitted, and a graphic was submitted as well. And at our request, Mr. Trendy actually did an analysis using the countywide races, and it was the same result. This map is legal, it's fair, it's equitable. And again, the issue I have, it's an issue with the minority has with this map is they proposed a map that was a complete and utter gerrymander. It performed so poorly that it was so far to the right of the scale where it should be that it was obviously a gerrymander. So don't make any mistake here that they want a fair map. What they want is a gerrymandered map, and unless we give in to their demands and give them what they want, they're not going to vote for it, and they're going to accuse us of being reckless. So there's these comments have no basis in reality, and no reason that we would vary from the course that we're on.
Is that data available?
Mr. Thomas, is that you? David Thomas?
Yes, my name is David Thomas.
Okay. The floor is yours.
When you say it's not about the money, it is about the money. This is racism to its core. If we do not learn of our history, we tend to repeat it. Somehow I think instead of living on Long Island, I'm living in South Africa before apartheid was dismantled. I was living in Rhodesia before the majority took over. This is sad. Promises were made to us, I'm from Uniondale, that you would have kept it whole. You decided now to take Uniondale and mix it with somebody else. When would you guys start listening? Is it, if you can call yourself Douglas, that Long Island was not made for black people? Are we to just sit and just accept the fact that we have a right or we don't have a right to elect our officials? When would this stop? Promises were made, none was kept. We talk about gerrymandering and gerrymandering. Who is gerrymandering what? Why can't we continue the votes like we had it so we can choose our representatives? we are in a situation right now where you guys decide that you're going to split us up. You're going to make it easier for you guys to get back into power. You guys are in power as it is, and it wasn't split up. What's the problem? What you're afraid of? We know that Long Island is, the color is somewhat changing. We have more black and brown people. What are you afraid of? If we were not here, lots of things would not have been in existence. You would not have been able to go across the country without a GPS system. You would not have been able to answer your cell phone without looking and see who called. You would not have been able to drive your car without understanding how itself keep the engine going. Please, what do we have to do to make you guys understand that together we can achieve more? What would it take for you to understand that you don't have to be afraid of me? I'm here just like you to make a great living and to raise a family. Why is it so sad that you look at me and be afraid of me? I'm human just like you. Gerrymandering is racism in another term. It's racist.
Lorraine Attias.
Just for the record, Presiding Officer, I'm taking the opportunity to go through the Trotman-Pepper report that you provided to us 5 minutes before the legislative meeting. Can you identify the analysis again that Mr. Trendy is using? Because I'm going through the report and I don't see it. I know Dr. Magleby has used the ensemble approach. I know you had indicated that you asked Mr. Trendy to change the measurement to reflect county elected years, but I don't see that in the report. Can you identify that by page?
Page 18.
Page 18.
Lorraine Attias.
I'm giving up my time.
Okay. Maria Jordan Awalam.
Presiding Officer.
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. You did state in your introduction that Millbrook in the 3rd Legislative District was, you said specifically a portion of it was concluded once again in the 3rd Legislative District.
Yeah.
Yet the report that you and your caucus rely upon on page, excuse me.
Good afternoon.
Just one moment, I'm sorry. On page 2, it states that the proposed revised map also accommodates this request as much as possible, restoring a significant portion of Millbrook.
Yes,
I stated, again, you stated portion, this report states significant. I refer to the map, and it is not a significant portion of Millbrook. There are constituents in Millbrook that call our office complaining that shopping carts from Green Acres Mall are on their property, and I would not be able to do so as a legislator if I am not their representative. And so I ask respectfully that the map include the entirety of Millbrook and not just a small sliver of Millbrook. Thank you.
Thank you.
Presiding Officer, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Maria, I'm sorry, but where's the actual analysis breakdown that Mr. Trendy did on his bar graph?
It's a description of his results.
So he didn't provide the same analysis.
You've made your point over and over again.
No, I made my point that your points are inconsistent.
Right, exactly.
But thank you.
No, you're reckless, too. You forgot to add that. Maria Jordan Awalam.
I think that's evident.
Yeah, I think it's evident as well with respect to your position, but that's all right. Go ahead.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon. I first want to thank Minority Leader Legislator Abrams for opening remarks and for always fighting for Freeport. So thank you. My name is Maria Jordan Awalam, and I am a resident of Freeport. I attended all of the hearings and made my voice heard about what we wanted to see in this map. I also submitted this via email, just in case. I cannot for the life of me understand how the Republican majority, along with its experts, could even make up this fantasy that Freeport has anything of interest besides the same line on the Long Island Railroad with Merrick and North Belmore. I don't care how broad anyone wants to define community of interest. Everything the majority's attorney pointed to in the previous hearing
that we have with these communities are purely transactional in nature and regarding government operations. And by the way, Freeport does not share schools with any of these communities, like you state in your little paragraph on District 5. The communities you want to group us with are the same ones who in the summer of 2020, when residents, mostly black and brown, took to the streets to protest the murder of George Floyd, we were told by Merrick and Belmore residents to go back where we came from, go back to Freeport. When the state was trying to give Freeport Armory to a youth group run by African Americans, Merrick residents said they didn't want those kids to cross the bridge and enter into their area. When many don't even feel safe going into or walking the streets of these communities, you are here telling us that we are to be considered a community of interest. When Freeport is already glaringly segregated between North and South, what the Republican majority has done with this latest map is basically erase us from the political conversation in Nassau County by aggressively diluting our vote for the next decade. Thank you. And just a quick question, will we be allowed to speak again at 6:30 p.m.?
No, that'll be a vote on the maps. Yeah, actually, there is a public comment portion before the meeting starts, and then once the meeting starts and we engage in the various items, including the item on the map, there's no public comment at that part. But there is a half-hour public comment here before the meeting starts.
All right.
You're right.
Thank you.
Yep. Pearl Jacobs.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, evening. I don't even know what time it is. I've been at 12 meetings the last 2 weeks. Good afternoon. So I was sitting there, and I was just going on my phone looking at a few synonyms for gerrymandering, trickery, treachery, crookedness. My question is, why would Nassau County in 2023 want to be associated with these terrible words? Although I am pleased that Uniondale was kept hold on the Nassau County map, I definitely feel the pain and disappointment of my fellow majority-minority communities, because the struggle is real for all minority communities. Scotty, I just want to turn to you and say thank you, Scotty. That's why I call you the queen. For Scotty Codes taught me everything I know about redistricting, gerrymandering, disenfranchisement. Many, many years ago, I went to a class that she gave, and she gave it her all, and I called her, and she's just such a giving, nurturing, and educating person. Thank you so much, Scotty. And I stand with you for Lakeview, I'm sorry, Lakeview. I have something, even though this is bad enough, but I'm happy that Uniondale has remained hold on this map, and I wish, my other minority communities would be recognized and have the changes they want for their communities. But I have something even worse, because the town of Hempstead map is an abomination. And I want to put this on public record. I am disappointed, but not surprised, that Ms. Gooseby, who I can no longer call councilwoman, voted with the majority to cut off Uniondale, north of Hempstead Turnpike. The only minority council person on the town of Hempstead board votes against a minority community, which will result in further marginalization and disenfranchisement for Uniondale. This is not, like I said, I'm disappointed but not surprised. I don't know what they promised her to sell out like that, but I could never do that. And Legislator Abrahams, you mentioned something about, traffic patterns and all of that, and I just have to say that I noticed that the day after Super Bowl Sunday, they were doing a traffic study on Hempstead Turnpike, the Monday after Super Bowl Sunday, which is consistently a light traffic day. And I would just assume that they were doing that traffic study, for the Coliseum, the proposed Coliseum over there. And they probably pick, oh, well, we'll do, I don't know, they could have been doing it Sunday as well, on Super Bowl Sunday, but I know I saw it the day after Super Bowl Sunday, one of the lightest travel days in the year, okay? It's an unofficial holiday, pretty much. And so they're doing it for, I'm sure, for that proposed casino, which I made it clear, and I'm still making it clear, I don't want, and the vast majority of residents, no matter what you're hearing in Uniondale, the stakeholders, I'm not talking about the millennials, I'm talking about the people who own their homes, pay high taxes, and have vested interests in Uniondale. We do not want a casino in Uniondale. Thank you.
Jonathan Ortiz.
Good afternoon, Presiding Officer, Minority Leader, and legislators. My name is Jonathan Ortiz. I am in the 7th grade. Today, I come before you to share my concerns and thoughts about the redistricting and how it will impact my community, Lakeview. Over the past few years, I've had the pleasure of participating in events in which our local elected officials have sponsored and attended. My parents have always talked about voting and the importance of voting. In fact, every election day, my parents make sure we go to vote as a family. They have shared with me that my great-grandparents have not always had the right to vote, and now we are able to vote and actively participate in the election process, which we should do so. My mother shared with me that our community is in jeopardy of losing our representatives that we have had almost my entire life, and it does make me feel sad. When I may not fully understand why these maps have been to be redrawn every 10 years, I do understand the importance of being able to select a representative one day. You want to represent our community. Today, while I am not old enough to vote, one day I will be able to do so. God willing, I will go with my parents to the election polling site, as we do every year, to cast my first ballot. My hope is that when I turn 18 and can select a candidate who will advocate for my community and engage with us just as we have been afforded by our current elected officials. I hope that when I turn 18 in just a few short years, that I will be able to elect a candidate within a district that shares similar values. I hope that as I enter an election booth, I will be able to select a candidate for Lakeview that desires to maintain a presence within our community. These desires can become a reality if Lakeview is placed in a district with other communities that share similar values. This reality can be achieved if we are placed in a district that does not dilute our vote. This can be achieved if our community remains whole. So today, I ask you to only vote for a map that will make it possible for myself and my peers to look forward to a day that we are able to vote in favor of representatives like ones I have been fortunate to have as long as I can remember, and reject any map that dilutes my community's ability to participate in the process that my great-grandparents were unable to participate in when they turned 18. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Doris Hicks.
Good afternoon. I am Doris Hicks Newkirk. This is my third time appearing before you. I asked the question, and before I begin, Jonathan, thank you. I've known Jonathan since a baby. That's a strong young man. He lives around the corner from me, and you're going to hear from him later in years. He knows what he's talking about. He's at meetings, and he enjoys what we do in our community of Lakeview. He's there. He knows. I have a question for you. As a resident of Lakeview for 37 years, I stand before you knowing that so many people came here. How many times? I know this is my third time. Have you not heard us? What does it take for you to understand who we are as the Lakeview community? I just don't understand it. What does it take? We're not asking you for money. We're asking you for representation so that we are equally represented. You say that we have commonality with the Malvern School District. Let me just remind you, I worked for that district for 15 years as a regular teacher. After retiring from Verizon for 30, I went there after 30 years of Verizon and went there and taught for 15, and then they called me back to sub for 4 until COVID hit. The Malvern residents, let me school you in on this, they don't use our school, that school district. It may say Malvern, but you know who uses it? Lakeview. Go back and look at your stats. How many people from Malvern go to the Malvern School District? Check it. Do your homework. We don't have commonality with them. We were forced over there because we didn't have any. You need to really understand there's no commonality there. Not with Lynbrook. Stephanie Chase told you that a week ago. As she delivered mail, they called her out of her name. But yet you're putting us over here with these people that don't care. Where my kids went to the store to get pizza and they said, "Ends, we don't serve you." Why aren't you hearing us? What does it take? Now, when you have your recess, you need to go back and look at that map again. I'm asking you to. I'm not telling you to. I'm asking you as we have done all along. We have nothing in common with these people that you have put us with, even the new one. And may I say, I know my time is just about up and I'm not going over, but may I say thank you to the legislators that have supported us all these years. Jonathan is right. We see the people there. They come to our events. They support us. You don't want that? You don't want a happy community with a minority population? I know you don't want an unhappy community and a minority population. Be careful. I'm not threatening you, but I'm telling you my people will not stand for this forever. Thank you.
Lisa Ortiz.
Good afternoon, everyone. I, like many other Lakeview residents, have been here for several meetings. We were here throughout the TDAC process, and we voiced our thoughts and our concerns and our requests and our desires. And here we are today at the final hearing on redistricting in the legislative body. The last time I was here, myself and several other residents from the hamlet of Lakeview came out and we asked if it was possible to place us in the closest minority-majority district. And today we come back and the lines have been redrawn, the maps have been redrawn, but not in favor of Lakeview. Today, we're now finding out that East Rockaway, Lynbrook, North Lynbrook, Malvern, West Hempstead, portions of Valley Stream, North Valley Stream, and now portions of Oceanside have been included in this newly proposed 14th district. And then you have Little Lakeview, also included in that new 14th district. This is disheartening, this is disturbing, this is every synonym that you could think of to describe how heartbreaking this is to our community. As my son Jonathan mentioned, we have had great representation within the second legislative district. And while we understand that the maps do have to change every 10 years, we also understand that there are communities that we share commonalities with that are very close to Lakeview. There were other maps that were presented that show if you put Lakeview with them, you would have an additional majority-minority district. Last time I was here, I listened to some of my neighbors speak about their experiences within the neighboring communities, and while they were not favorable, they were not pleasant, they shouldn't have even been warranted experiences that they've had to live through. This is our reality, unfortunately. And our only request is that, well, two requests, is that we be placed within a district that we share commonalities with, not that you assume based on the narratives that are presented. We share a school district, we share a train line. I mean, naturally, there's not many train lines in Nassau County, so if you're adjacent to one community, you're going to share a train line with them. But that's not a reason to say that we have common interests. Our churches are not in East Rockaway. Our churches are not in Lynbrook. Our churches are not in West Hempstead. Our churches are in Hempstead, Westbury. Our churches are in Baldwin. Our churches are in other communities, not one of them that are listed in District 14. Those are communities that we share. Those are not communities that we share common interests with. Again, I'm going to ask for I don't know how many times this is, do not vote this map in. And I'm going to ask that you reject it. And anyone who votes for this, we will go ahead and be sure to remember that. We'll take note of that. And we're watching. And this next generation of young voters, they're coming up. And while they may not be able to vote in this upcoming election, they're coming and they're going to remember. Times are changing. Demographics are changing. They're shifting. And we're asking that at this moment, that you vote down any map that keeps Lakeview in a diluted, disenfranchised, cracked map that does not have our best interest at heart. Thank you. Oh, and keep us in District 2 if possible. Have a good day.
Thank you, Lisa. Susan Kay.
We've heard a lot about change in Nassau County. I saw the revolutionary change. I used to live in North Valley Stream from 1956 to 2010. When I was very young, the area was a strictly white, Jewish, Italian area. Suddenly it changed. It became multicultural, Black, Hispanic, Indian, Muslim. 3 blocks away from where I used to live, there was a Muslim mosque. That change brought a very strong change in the 3rd legislative district. For years, we had John Ciotti get reelected. Suddenly Carrie Salajas got in because of change. Your maps that you have are so gerrymandered. The town of Hempstead in this map, it is disgusting. We can get red flag laws in New York State, but how come we can't get a map that's cohesive to what is going on with the population in the Nassau County Legislature? These maps should be voted down. It is absolutely disgusting. Gerrymandering hurts people and elections. A good example was the last year of the state
New York State Senate electric. We had lost good people because the maps were gerrymandered and we ended up with garbage. I suggest anybody who votes on these maps, your next election, you will be voted out of office. Thank you.
Kelly Johnson.
Good afternoon. This is my first time here. I am a recently retired New York City Department of Education public school principal, grades 7 through 12. My school was a high-performing school. I feel confident in speaking to you. The population of my school did not look like me. So I'm accustomed to speaking to people whose experiences in life do not look like mine, but with whom I can establish some common ground. And what I'm concerned about is this. I've heard speakers being cut off. I would never be permitted to do that in my school. I've heard that suggestions are being dismissed. I could never do that in my public school. I've heard it intimated that we've spent enough time. What I do know is that when people are not heard, when they feel they're not valued, when they feel that their viewpoints don't count, don't matter, they become dissatisfied. What I do know is that if information is presented and decisions are made, at least people can say, hey, I don't like it, but I see how that was done. But what I'm hearing is that it's quite possible that everyone's not seeing what's done. But I could be mistaken, because when people argue, fight back and forth, and talk over one another, I can't hear what the individuals are saying. It sounds to me like there may have been a process that could be used for redistricting that was not used. But then I think I heard that maybe it was, but the data didn't come up or present itself in a way that another member wanted it to look like. And I can't myself explore what's being said because it's not made available. Does that make any sense? And that's disturbing to me. Let me make a correction. There are children in my school that look like me, some of them, but the majority of them do not. And somehow we were able to have a good, cohesive school community. But it was because we made things transparent. And my gut is telling me that's not happening here, but I could be wrong. And if I'm not wrong, please show me where I can get that information, because I would like to understand what's going on. I hear what people are feeling, but I don't see all the data. Does that make any sense? I'm also going to add that I believe they called her Miss Scott. When my great aunt, who's now 96, when driving her to the family reunion in North Carolina, I had to take the piss pot out of her bag because she was accustomed to not being able to go to the bathroom. So I had to argue with her about the piss pot. And of course, she put it in the trunk of my car, right? But at least she didn't have to use it, right? So I understand. I also understand. I'm shocked to hear that people are being called the N-word. I used to work at oh my goodness, the Burger Kings on Merrick Boulevard. And I recall coming in one day, and the youngsters, people younger than myself, I was age 17, a little younger than me, were upset because black people weren't wanted at the front counter during dinner hour. And I said to my manager, who did not look like me, I said, wait a second, you always have me at the front, no matter what time of the day. And he said, because you're different. I didn't know how to take that. Didn't feel so comfortable. But that was over 40 years ago. I'm 59. We shouldn't still be experiencing that same thing. I'm 59. I was 17 at the time. We shouldn't be experiencing that same thing. And one last point. Somehow my parents raised me to believe that although black is beautiful and I should be proud, it doesn't diminish the shine of anyone else. But when we play the games, it then makes us feel like you're diminishing. Please answer me. is that data available that you spoke of? Because I would like to see it. I don't know about the argument. I don't know which way I'm going to go. But I would like to see what the discussion is about. It's not clear to me because I don't see that data. Is that available online or in a packet here? I lied. One more. Is there a rush to make a decision? Is it? Because one thing I did learn in order to have a successful school, where they want me to come back as principal, is that I delayed stuff to the chagrin of my superintendent and the powers that be. I wanted to make certain that my school community was all on board to whatever it was. Even if they said, I don't like it, but I get it, right? So I'm recommending that if you are rushing to have a vote at 6:30, that given the discord and the discomfort that's in the community, that maybe it be delayed, some information made available, right? And maybe a vote take place a little later on. Is that possible?
By charter, the plan has to be adopted by next week.
Who made that decision?
It's in the Nassau County Charter.
Can that be amended?
Secondly, the Democratic Commission...
Can that be amended?
No, it cannot be amended by us at this point.
Who's the us?
The legislature. We can't amend the charter on the fly. We cannot do it. The date is the date. Number one. Number two, the Democratic Commission to the Board of Elections has threatened a lawsuit.
I'm not asking about the individuals, just the data, just the data.
I'm answering your question
as
to why...
But can we not mention Democratic and Republican?
It's relevant to the
point
I'm
making.
making.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the question you had with respect to the urgency to move, the Democratic Commission to the Board of Education has threatened to bring a lawsuit because he says if we delay any further, it will have an impact on the Board of Elections rollout for this coming election. So it has to be done, and it will be voted on tonight.
And can that Democratic Commission then make a change in their decision? Because it sounds like if it's a group of people that did that.
The time to start circulating petitions for this cycle for all offices in local elections is tomorrow. So we cannot delay this any further. It has to be done. It has this has to be done now.
And can the data be made available so people can see it before 6:30?
There is a description of the analysis in the report that's available right there from Troutman Pepper.
So when you say description, we do know that we make decisions based upon our own filter, right? Now, and our prior experience. So is it possible that the numbers itself, not someone's interpretation of the numbers, you know, one of the things I never did as a principal was to tell my teachers the number of children that must pass the course, because I knew that data could always be skewed. And I would prefer that children learn as opposed to my teachers be concerned about the end of the semester numbers. So that's why I don't like description. I like to see the data myself. I'm pretty bright. I can go over it and make some understanding of it myself. And if I'm incorrect, I can voice my incorrection and it could be heard. Can that data be seen?
We have provided a description of the analysis.
So the answer is no, the numbers can't be seen? I can't be given...
Whatever...
I'm sorry, I can't hear everybody. I'm sorry.
We have provided this description, and that is all that we are able to provide at this time.
And you're not able to provide the numbers because...
We have a description of what he did.
I got you, and we're not able to provide the numbers because... So, like, you know how you have a score in terms of your economic stability, and that fluctuates. My dollar amount on my bank account, I love it because it may not fluctuate as often as my credit score does, right? So it's based upon who's interpreting information at the time. So that's why the data itself is important. And are you saying to me, and if you are, it is what it is. If you're saying to me that we're not going to make the data available, just let me know that, then I can stop the argument.
We are not providing anything beyond the description that we provided today.
To anyone, do they have it? Wait. They don't have it either?
We have...
I'm sorry, I don't want to hear from the Democrats. The Republicans don't have it either?
We have all the information we need to vote on this map. And anything else that we're talking about is simply a pretext. We as legislators are here to decide on whether these lines meet our requirements. We have the expert who was used in a case before the Court of Appeals who did an analysis and said, yes, this performs very well right in the middle of where it
So
should.
the people sitting beside you on either side, they all had the numbers and could then understand if the description of the numbers is aligned
we did
with
not have
what
I'll tell you what one of the things that Mr. Trendy did.
No, okay, the Trendy's okay, got
I'm
you.
going to answer your question.
Okay.
One of the things he did is run 50,000 variations. It's called an ensemble of potential elections in Nassau County to see where this map performed in terms of whether it was a gerrymander or not. So do we have 50,000 versions he did? No, we don't.
Can they have access to it?
No, I mean, no. It's not what we have today.
Have you seen it?
No, of course not. Of course not. 50,000? You think I'm going to go through 50,000 computer simulations and look at each one of them? Of course not. That's why we hired an expert. They got the same person whose analysis was accepted by the Court of Appeals of New York State. And I want to thank you, Ms. Johnson, for your time. We're over the 3 minutes. I'm calling
I
the
got
next
you,
person.
I'm going to leave, but I suggest that even though it's 50,000 iterations, what we would often do is randomly select some of the iterations just to confirm that the firm that we hired was doing their job appropriately. And I myself didn't go through that. I had math teachers who did math in their sleep, so I have people who would do that.
Okay,
but
thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. We
the
appreciate
random.
it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just speaking, if I may, Land Officer.
We have two more speakers, then you can make whatever comments, and we'll close here.
Mrs. Johnson made a very, well, she asked the minority. We don't have the data. I can't speak for the majority, but we don't have the data in the minority. That's all I wanted to say.
Kevin McKenna. Just for the record, note that Legislator Ferretti is with us, too.
And just to add before Mr. McKenna, Mrs. Johnson, just to make sure, we, the minority, do not have all the information to make a decision on a map today. Just to be clear, we do not have all the analysis, just to make sure that's clear. In the minority. Can't speak for the majority.
I completely disagree. I think we all collectively
That's why I spoke on behalf of the minority.
Well, I was just...
I didn't say legislature.
You just complained ad nauseum about my interrupting you. I went three words in and you interrupted me.
How can you disagree with what I just said when I said we in the minority do not have the data? Are you going to tell us what we have now?
I completely disagree. I think every legislator here has more than enough information to make an informed decision on whether or not to vote for this map. Every one of us. There's no question in my mind.
So the presiding officer is now telling the minority what they should think.
And I'll say this also. If anyone doesn't have enough information, that's an issue with that person or a pretext in which they're going to say they're going to vote against it because of that. We have, as legislators, we have provided an incredible amount of information. The hearings of the TDAC alone went on for months. We had access to those. You can view those online. We had reports from Democratic experts. We have reports from Republican experts. We have gone through it all. We have as much information as any person, any reasonable person could ever possibly need to make an informed decision on these maps. And tonight, when we make that vote, each one of us will be making an informed decision, whether we vote yes or no.
Again, we cannot make the decision for the same reasons that Ms. Johnson just brought up. That's just one of the reasons in regards to the fact that the same analysis that was done by Mr. Trendy, that expert analysis, not even the public can get it. No one can get it. It's secret. It's somewhere in a corner of this building somehow. I don't know where it is. But the bottom line is we can't make a decision on that.
What specific?
Here we go with the cutting off again. I sat here patiently waiting for you to finish.
Let me ask you this about Mr. Trendy's analysis. Tell me what specifics from his analysis.
We get the tactic, Rich. We get it.
Okay, what specifically?
You don't like what I'm saying, so you're going to cut me off.
I'm going to ask you a question. What specifically from his analysis?
Rich, I'm not going to answer your question.
Mr. Miles, step back. You can answer the question in his own. He doesn't need legal advice.
We're not going to answer your question when you want me to answer it. I'm making a point on why we cannot vote on this because we don't have all the information.
Okay, thank you.
I'll get to the part with the analysis when I do my summation after we have these two speakers.
All right, no,
but the majority is going to try to tell us what we should think.
You can't answer the question.
And then the other two.
It's all a show, folks.
So we're going to keep cutting off.
It's a show.
You're
you
right.
can't answer the question.
You're right.
What specific part of Mr. Trendy's analysis do you need? What specific part of his analysis? You want to see the $50,000 iterations?
Rich,
50,000?
what we want, Rich.
You
very
can't answer
simple.
the question.
I'm going to answer it right now.
It's a pretext.
Yeah, it's a pretext. What we want, folks, is the same data analysis that Mrs. Johnson asked for, broken down by index. Very similar to what Mr. Trendy did when he did the gubernatorial analysis. See, you're going to cut me off again because he doesn't like what I'm saying. He's getting his response. He's getting his response, but he doesn't like what I'm saying, so he's going to cut me off.
I want to understand what you're saying.
Are you going to keep cutting me off?
Yeah,
Rich, are you going to keep cutting me off?
I just want an answer.
No, I just want to answer the question. Can you answer my question? Are you going to keep cutting me off?
I'm going to ask. Are
you going to keep, Rich?
You said you want an index.
This is simple.
What do you want in the index?
Rich, you're making a mockery of this place.
No, just answer the question, please.
Rich,
you demanded this information. You can't answer.
Rich, are you going to keep cutting me off?
You can't answer it. Okay, never mind.
I
withdraw the questions because you obviously have no ability to answer it.
So let me finish my point.
Yeah, okay.
Jesus, wow, this is unbelievable. So the bottom line is, folks, the same metric analysis that we're asking for, he's breaking it down and saying it's 50,000 pages, 50,000 iterations. Yes, it is. It's a lot of iterations. But it's broken down to an index. The other thing is, we haven't seen, at least I haven't seen, there was a racialized, polarized information based on voter information that was supposed to be done. I haven't seen it. It hasn't been done. The third thing, I haven't heard one logical reason. I know the presiding officer and Mr. Salins sat here and put together at their computer a map. I haven't seen a reason or justification why Lakeview, why Freeport could not be placed into a minority-majority district. Fourth, other than looking at Mr. Salem's report, which I got to tell you, I heard from him, and I wish he was here to defend himself. He didn't really present well. I think the public would admit to that. That being said, Mr. Salem's report, I still can't reconcile, and I wish he was here to ask, and I said this from the outset, I still can't reconcile violations in the Federal Voting Rights Act where you have to consider race versus his report, which basically says the opposite, that race should not be considered. How can race not be considered? When Judge Spat created legislative districts in this county, he considered race. Legislative District 1 and 2 were created based on race. And now, and that was a federal case, but now we're saying that it's not considered? And we have Mr. Salins, who doesn't even understand communities of interest, who writes in his report that communities of interest are tied by train lines? But we're relying on him and this report from Trop and Pepper? So yes, Mr. Presiding Officer, I just made 4 points that we don't have the information in regards to the data analysis. We don't have the racialized, polarized voter information that we've asked for. We don't understand why Lakeview and Freeport are broken out and cracked from their original legislative districts. So I got plenty of questions. If you just allow me to get them out. But instead, we are getting bogged down in cutting people off because we don't like what they say. Or we're going to say, you want a lawsuit. I've never once, folks, you were here. He keeps saying that I want that. Have you heard me say that I want a lawsuit? They're smarter than that, Rich. They really are. You have to give them more credit. The bottom line is, I've never once advocated for a lawsuit. All I advocated for is that if the folks, the residents of this county do not see due process per this process, that is their course of action, which is unnecessary and not warranted if we do the right thing. That's it. It's that simple. Follow the John Lewis provisions. Good. Follow the state constitution. Good. Follow the Federal Voting Rights Act. Good. That's it. Now, what that means for you folks, it's very simple. Lakeview into a minority-majority district. Let's just make it clear so they can understand, because they're going to say, oh, Kavan is just pushing for a map that favors Democrats. Okay, he could say that, but let's just be clear. A map that these folks want to see is something that puts Lakeview into a minority-majority district. Can you do it? That's simple. Freeport, a minority-majority community of the areas of Northeast and Northwest, which have been in minority-majority districts for, I don't know, the last 23 years, into a minority-majority district. Very simple. Make it very clear for them so they can understand. They're not going to do it. Not going to do it. And if they do it, it's going to be with some other caveat. The bottom line is we're not making this process political. They are. I've never once said I wanted any particular map, any particular thing. Never once said that. But we're going to continue to keep trying to cut me off, cut off members, shut us down, then change the question, then tell us how to think. I don't know which one it is. But you know what? You are setting Nassau County, and the record's going to show that if this county is sued, that this process is tainted. Thank you.
Kevin McKenna.
Kevin McKenna, Syosset resident. I'm also an advocate for honest, competent government, and apparently we don't have that here in Nassau County. Thankfully, I'm broadcasting this meeting on Nassau County NY News, and I say thankfully because it is just unbelievable to me that News 12, in the middle of Scotty's passionate, intelligent comments, disrespected her and packed up their camera in the middle of her speaking. So thankfully, I'm bringing this, and I also brought all the speakers to the attention of anybody who watches Nassau County NY News on Facebook and also NassauCountyNYNews.com. Mr. Nicolello, Chairman Nicolello, I don't know how you could say the word transparency. You are making George Santos and the Republicans, you're making George Santos look like a kindergartner with the display that you personally have been putting on for the last few meetings. And I want to thank the officers here for allowing me to stay this meeting. I am very, very disappointed that my legislator, Josh Lafassan, when he knew that I was going to get up to speak, once again ran away. I have many videos to show him running away, and it's shocking to me. Well, what's really, really bizarre is that you have a bunch of legislators to your right, and they have nothing to say. I've got to believe that they understand a lot of what, especially Minority Leader Kavan Abrahams is saying, and some of the other Democrats that have spoken. I've got to believe that they, in their hearts, understand the travesty that's taking place here in Nassau County. And tonight, I urge, because there's a lot of people that are going to see this, I urge every legislator tonight, before you vote, take a few sentences to explain how you are justifying your vote tonight in light of what we have heard here, this meeting, and the meetings before. And I'll wrap it up. You know, you all like to do photo ops with each other and show how the Democrats work with the Republicans. A lot of times you talk about that. You take pictures together, and you can't even have a conversation in public on an important issue where Kavan Abrahams, I hope I'm not saying that wrong, Kavan asks you important, specific questions, and you shut down a minority leader on the Nassau County Legislature in public? It's disgraceful.
Okay.
It's disgraceful.
Your time is up. Thank you, sir.
And once again...
Marie Remus?
Well, of course my time is up because you don't like what I have to say, right?
Your time is up. You
gave others...
You had an opportunity to speak about the issue, but you chose not to.
You gave others some extra time.
That's at the option of the chair.
Don't discriminate against this white guy. Don't discriminate against me.
You're done. Ms.
Okay?
Remus. Marie
I'm
Remus.
not done.
Marie
I'm not
Remus.
done.
Marie
I'm not
Remus.
done. You know what?
Your time
I
is up.
pay your salary. I'm not done.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are, sir. It's 3-minute
You,
limit.
Mr. Nicoletto,
I gave you
are
some
a
extra time.
disgrace
All
to the
right,
Republican
all right,
Party.
all right,
And
Mr.
as a
McCann.
registered Republican, I am changing my party registration because of the display that you have put on this non-transparent process. And I urge all Republicans out there
You're going to change your
to
registration?
consider the same. And I urge you all tonight, Republican legislators,
gonna
and a
change
lot of
it-
you I respect, I
You're gonna
urge you
change it-
tonight
you're gonna
to
change your
justify-
registration because of me?
I urge you tonight to justify your vote. Don't sit there like the puppets that you look like. Thank you very
You're
much.
going to change your registration? You're going to change your registration because of me, Mr. McKenna? I think there's a lot of Republicans that are going to be happy with me, sir. Marie Remus. Marie Remus. Marie Remus?
Right here.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I came from a country that is called Haiti. And dictatorship is nothing for you guys to play with because you don't know it until you go to live it. Right now, you remind me of Duvalier Papa Doc, and you remind me of Duvalier Baby Doc. The way you act today is a disgrace to humanity, not to Kevin, not to anybody, not to the public. But for your position, you don't have no business talking to people like that. Whether you agree or disagree, that's what makes the beauty of the world. I am short, he's tall, this one is medium, this one is black, this one is white, yellow, green. The bottom line is the blood is red for everybody, for everyone. So if people could just sit down and think, whether you black, white, yellow, Republican, money, poor, 2 eyes, 1 mouth, 1 nose with 2 holes in it, and that two arms, 2 eyes. That's what it is. You're too fresh for a public servant. Be humble. Calm down. Calm down. You disrespect him, you disrespect us, you disrespect your colleagues. You show me that you went to school, but you don't have education. Education is one thing. Formation is another thing. You don't have no right to talk to people like this, all right? So it's look like right now you guys want to do whatever you want to do. It might be able for you to vote tonight and do it, but down the road things will be reversed because the demographic is changing. The world is changing. It's not only United States. And remember, United States is the best democracy in the world. But the way you guys are acting, you're standing to lose it. And when you lose it, that's when you will know what you had. You are a disgrace to humanity.
Tristan Sally.
I wasn't going to speak today. Sat in the back for the last almost 2 hours. And I have grown incredibly frustrated by this topic. Minority Leader, we got you. As a community, we got you. And for those of you who don't understand the hermeneutics of my biblical exegesis of I got him, what I mean is, as a community, we have his back. Because this process, from the very beginning, has lacked transparency. And Mr. Presiding Officer, if I may, as a pastor in this community, in this county, The display that you continue to put on has been nothing short of a dog and pony show. It's been disrespectful of your colleagues and tax-paying citizens who've simply asked of you and both the Republican and Democrats to provide information over and over again. We've asked it across the board to share it. Now, some of you have been very open and transparent, and others have continued to allow their process to be shrouded in secrecy. Must I remind you of the old proverb adage that said, what's done in the dark comes to the light? And when it comes to the light, when it's exposed, this community, this county will see that these maps have been disproportionately, have been drawn to disenfranchise and to dilute not just minority votes, but constituents across the board. What I'm asking you for, because truly I'm losing faith in this process. I've lost hope in the integrity of people, is to help restore citizens' trust in government. Part of what's wrong with this country, why we're so divided on topics where the left is fighting the right and the right is fighting the left, is because everybody's trying to get over on somebody. And ultimately, many of us just want a community where we live in harmony, where our streets remain safe, and where our voices and our opinions can be heard. I believe you want to be heard, but you don't want to hear when folks disagree with you, which is politics and not politics. Politics is about coming to the table of negotiation and asking and requesting and showing your cards in your hands, and not try to fool by sleight of hand. Before you all vote tonight, I urge you to reflect on this process. Reflect on all the materials you've received, what you've shared and may have not have shared with us as the public. Reflect on it. And come to a decision. But before you do that, take an opportunity, one last opportunity, before 6:30 tonight, to not only listen to the community, but to work amongst yourselves to make sure that Nassau County is fairly represented. As a pastor, I proclaim hope, peace, unity, and love. And that's what I believe Nassau County wants to represent. Do me a favor, because I'm watching. Prove me right. Please don't prove me wrong. We beg of you. We implore. We humbly request. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. And lastly, and I'm headed back to my seat, we're coming to the closing hours of Black History Month. And right after the close of 11:59 p.m. on February the 28th, we will enter into Women's History Month. Let us remember, as one of my sisters quoted so poetically from what is one of the greatest songs I've ever heard, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Let us remember the blood, the sweat, the tears, the lives that have been lost from minority communities and women's rights groups throughout time that have simply asked for rights to vote and to elect candidates that represented them and not to have their voices diluted or ignored. Have a wonderful day.
Okay. Anyone else have a statement to make among the legislators?
I think, wow, this is really tough. I was just reflecting on the young man, Jonathan Ortiz, that spoke earlier. And I don't think, this is my third redistricting. I think I share that responsibility and that task with maybe a few people up here. And I don't think I've ever seen a young man, 12 years old, say the things that he said, understanding the magnitude, and obviously a lot of this is much larger and hard to comprehend, but that's a great civic action that he was a part of, and I just want to reflect on that for a moment. So this is what we have today, and I already know what the majority is going to say. They're going to disagree with everything I just said. I'm going to say. And that's okay, because that's part of this process. I mean, they're going to say what they need to say, and we'll say what we need to say, and let the public decide for themselves. That being said, there are major problems with the map that's being proposed. This map has issues as it pertains to dilution of minority votes. This map violates federal voter rights provisions, the John Lewis provision. It violates parts of the New York State Constitution. The public has demonstrated, I want to say on now several occasions just this year, that they have requested that that Lakeview and Freeport be assimilated to minority-majority districts. We saw for periods of this map where in some cases it could be argued, I'm not saying by me, but it could be argued that this map disfavored candidates of this body and this legislative body. We've seen in this map, again, a report that was put together by Mr. Trendy, the expert of the majority Republican, the Republican majority, and everyone asked for the report, and all we get is you can get a description on page 18 that summarizes his report. When Mr. Trendy was asked to do a report before, you go a few pages earlier, page 14, he did a very nice bar graph. Where is the analysis based off of what Dr. McAbee said in a bar graph? You're not going to get it. So we're going to keep, and then we asked for the polarized race and voter information, same information we asked to Mr. Salins. I thought we asked it to Mr. Salins, and Mr. Salins is not here today. Big surprise. But not only is he not here, there's no mention of it. And then again, folks, you're going to be left in the darkness. You're going to be left, there's things done in secrecy, there's no transparency, and then, luckily, I'm not being cut off this time, luckily, every single time you're going to get cut off, you're going to get shouted down, you're going to be told that we did it, we did the analysis, trust us. The bottom line is, I'm just going to make this very clear. The way they can make their map legal so that this could be done in unanimous fashion is a couple different things. One, you have a unique opportunity from the folks from Lakeview, the folks that came from Freeport, they have come here to include in a minority-majority district those areas that are predominantly minority-majority. They've made the request. It's not that you should do it because Lakeview is asking for it, even though they're taxpayers and our residents. You should do it because it would ensure that we don't violate federal voter rights legislation. Secondly, you've had the opportunity to create 5 minority-majority districts. We came close. They fell short by 1. Now, this is a provision, this is not what Democrats are asking for, because I know they would try to paint this issue that this is something the Democrats want because they want a gerrymandered map. No. This is written into federal law. It's in the state constitution. The John Lewis provision indicates that when possible, which Nassau County is possible, and Dr. Gall's report, which if anyone would care to read her memo, indicates that, which I have it right here for everybody in the public that wants to see it, and obviously we'll provide it to anyone that wants to read it, because we have nothing to hide. But Dr. Gall's report indicates that that is a reality as it pertains to Nassau County, that we can have 5 minority-majority districts. We have 4. For whatever reason, Lakeview and Freeport, if put together in a certain way with other communities, could easily be 5. But why don't they want to do that? Because they did the performance analysis that Mr. Trendy did, and their analysis shows that they still have 12 seats. And they're trying to protect, to make sure they keep 12 seats. That's the politics behind all this. So if they want to make sure they keep 12 seats, but they got to give one to a minority-majority district, who loses out? The minority-majority district loses out every single time for the sake of preserving 12 seats in the Republican majority. Let's just spell it out clear as day as we can. That's what this is about. So it has nothing to do with folks. It has nothing to do with taxpayers. And ultimately, I hate to say it, and I don't want to see it, but if this is presented in a court of law, they're going to see it the way it is. They're going to ask the question, well, how come the community didn't get the data analysis report that was done by Mr. Trendy? And how come it took 60 residents, 70 residents from the hamlet of Lakeview to come down here and to explain once and over again that they would like to be placed in a minority-majority district, and they're still not? And then we had folks from Freeport do the same thing, and they're still not. And then you have to explain, well, why isn't there 5 minority-majority districts? Did Mr. Trendy do an analysis based on that? Did Mr. Salins from Trotman Pepper do an analysis based on that? So we asked the question over and over again. Well, what information you don't have, Democratic minority? There's a lot. I just went through a litany of things. Now, I know what the presiding officer is going to do. He's going to say, you have the information. You have everything. You have the same thing we have. But if we're telling you we're not, and we can describe and delineate it case by case and point by point, then let's have a working session and figure it out. Because obviously there must be some disconnect. Because all I can see on page 18 is that Mr. Trendy references and describes his report. I don't see a report here. I don't see an analysis that is very similar to the analysis that he did when we had a legislative session and a hearing sometime last week. I don't see it. So just tell me where it is. If I got to go to a hallway or a closet somewhere in this building, I'll go find it. But the fact remains, it's not being produced. It's not going to come because they rather keep folks in the dark. It's a secret. When I asked a very pointed question to Mr. Salins, and I'm going to wrap up, I asked him, who drew the map? Did you draw the map? He couldn't even give me a response. He told me that it was in conjunction with the presiding officer. So the presiding officer, so they want us to believe that the presiding officer, he can't read through 50,000 iterations of the map. But he sat at a computer and drew lines on a computer program and drew the map. Really? The folks of this community are a little bit smarter than that. But thank you.
And you had to ask him 3 times and he still didn't answer.
So Legislator Bino, and then Legislator Ferretti.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'll start out by acknowledging and out of appreciation for the constituents of Districts 2 and 3 and 16 and 5. As referenced earlier, you heard the voices of the legislators and the individuals that came out and spoke on the record and made changes to the map. So I am heartened by that, but I do share the sentiments of my colleague, Kavan Abrahams, that, you know, I don't want to see this go to a lawsuit, right? And I know that you've done a lot. You closed the gap on some really big issues when this map first met this legislature. But I do think we've got to push the envelope just a little bit further. No one should be left behind. Not Lakeview, not North Freeport, But I'm going to, today, in this moment, speak specifically to Lakeview. Lakeview has a historic value and context here in Nassau County that does not mimic anywhere else in Nassau County. It was because of the segregation. The black students went to the school at the Woodfield Road School, and the white students of the same school district only went to the Malvern High School. And it was because of that significant separation that Dr. Martin Luther King came here on May, the date varies, it could be the 12th or the 11th, but nonetheless it was in 1965. And for some of us, that was before we were even born. But it was a historic time that happened back in Lakeview to start the desegregation. And it's that same moment in time that was captured back in 1965 to this very day is still really, really highly spoken about in the Lakeview community. There is not one matriarch nor patriarch in that community that you'll ever spend any significant time with where they won't share that story. They either experienced it directly and witnessed Dr. Martin Luther King come and fight for their rights, or some of the younger folks had the benefit of sitting at a kitchen table and hearing that story. And it's because of that fight that you see individuals time and time again from the Lakeview community show up here and beg and plead for them to be in a district where their voices will not be diluted, where they will not be disenfranchised. It's because that fight is birthed in them because of their struggles, the struggles of their matriarchs and their patriarchs. And I think it was a significant value that Jonathan was here today, because we are now hearing generations that will come after us, that will serve in some way or another, say, please, with the same fight in them, don't dilute my voice. Don't disenfranchise me. So it's for the very reason that we want to create opportunities for these hearings, for us to hear from our communities, our constituency, so that we can understand the impacts of our vote, that I thought it was important that Jonathan was here today. I applaud his mother and his father for making the decision to bring him here today. Because our impact will far exceed any immediacy in its moment. It will have impacts down the road. It will have impacts down the road because disenfranchisement and dilution of votes also lead to suppression of votes. Lakeview is a community that votes vigorously, regularly. As Ms. Code said, it has just a few electoral districts, but that district would rival many other communities of larger size. So to lose their voice, to lose their presence, would be I think it would be tragic. A community that was the epicenter, the battleground for civil rights, would now be diluted. But more importantly, the young people that would have to come after us, that would seek to serve, would not hit a glass ceiling, but in fact today we would pull it down on them. I like Legislator Kavan Abrahams, can see how we can make, I could see, I'm not an expert, okay? I can't draw a map for you, but I can see the pathway to bridging those communities like North Freeport with Lakeview and Baldwin and South Hempstead. I can see it with my mind's eye even without even looking at the map in the moment. And so if there's a moment in time that we can do something so that we don't disenfranchise that community, a community that has been very, very active, that is very, very passionate about their representation, now is the time. Thank you.
Legislator Ferretti.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I've said a couple times now, I find the entire process fascinating, and I've watched the hearings of the TDAC, and one of the first hearings, the chairman of the Democratic Commission, maybe it was a slip, maybe it wasn't, I don't know, but he had said that, and this is before any map was proposed, and I know the Presiding Officer referenced this earlier, before any map was proposed by either the Democrat Commission, the Republican Commission, us, no map, that this was headed to court. And at that point, in my head, I said, oh boy, when we're up there voting, no matter what we do, I have a feeling that the other side is probably going to have a problem with it. That's politics. I get it. I get why you're saying and need to say what you're saying. I knew at the moment I heard the commissioner of the TDAC on the Democrat side say this is headed to court, so I get that. But before we take the vote tonight, I did want to thank the presiding officer. I wanted to thank our entire caucus over here, the public, and I want to thank the minority as well. Legislator Bino a few minutes ago said that we've done a lot since this map was first part. We really haven't. We have as an entire legislature. Those amendments were at your suggestion on the minority side, many of them, many from the public. But many were from you, from Legislator Bino, from Legislator Drucker. We heard from all of you. And I would challenge anyone in this room to find, since the new laws passed down from Albany, a map that's put forward for a vote where more input has not been taken from the minority in a body. I would challenge you to find one. I would challenge you to find a single map that was put forward by a majority that had more districts with registered voters from the minority party. I understand Legislator Abrahams has said it should be, has indicated that there's trending that should be considered. I get that. But I want to thank the entire legislature because, like I said, like it or not, I feel this map is a map that was created by all of us. So thank you all for your efforts.
Legislator Szilagyi.
Thank you very much. Legislator Ferretti, thank you for your comments, and thank you everyone for your comments, especially the public. There was mention by you, Legislator Ferretti, of party registration and how the party registration shows that it is a fair process, but that is assuming that there is no phenomenon that we may know of as party rating, where one particular political party intentionally has its members re-register of the other political party just to dilute the vote in certain elections. We're assuming that doesn't occur in Nassau County. The party registration factor can't be considered not in a vacuum. It has to consider that as well. Secondly, there was reference made to my predecessor, John Ciotti, may he rest in peace. I do want to point out that that election in 2011 was a very historical election, not just because a 16-year incumbent was defeated, but also it represented one of very few times in the history of this institution that a Republican and a Democrat won on the same lines that were drawn. And I do mind that I believe that those lines were drawn by Democrats when we had a Democrat as a presiding officer. And those lines in 2011, a Republican won on those lines and a Democrat won on those lines. And that district was very different from the district that I have this year, the district that exists currently. That district expanded from east to west, from west to east. It clearly showed the trend of population of individuals from Queens reaching the American dream, buying a home, and as they moved in from Elmont to Franklin Square to West Hempstead, the district expanded eastwards. The year after that election, maybe because certain communities were upset that a young Democrat was representing them, the district was changed. And it didn't go from west to east, it went from north to south. As we see under many constitutional cases regarding gerrymandering, that is a clear sign that these districts have been gerrymandered. And so, yes, I thank the commission and the majority for changing certain things in the map that were mentioned regarding District 3, but it does not truly reflect the true growth and the communities of interest and their growth. Respectfully, I'm thankful that a sliver of Millbrook has been included, but nevertheless not the majority of all of Millbrook has been included. I ask you to please keep Millbrook whole. I ask you please also to not just focus on the 3rd Legislative District, but to focus on all the districts in which we see an example of packing and cracking. For those reasons, I have various concerns about this map. I have various concerns that not only will it lead to a lawsuit, but it will lead to many things that we saw in the congressional election last year, in which people did not know of the election date. It led to a low voter turnout. It led to frustration amongst voters, feeling that their vote was diluted, or their vote was not respected. It was not the best example of democracy in action when you have a special master or a court not issue sufficient notice to the public to educate people as to how and what exactly is going on in the process. It's for those reasons that I have various concerns, not just that this map will lead to a lawsuit, but it would lead to conditions in Nassau County becoming less democratic. Thank you very much, everyone who came here to speak. God bless you.
Okay, any other legislators? Hearing none. Legislator, Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell? You have a motion? Motion to close the hearing, seconded by Legislator Ford. All in favor of closing the hearing signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you all for coming down to our hearing today.